We can continue in our program, and I would like to introduce the last speaker in this session number one. It is Porie Eapen from MTA New York. Porie is our traditional guest that supported our conference from the beginning, and her presentation is how COVID-19 changed the way we work, live, and think, a New York perspective. So, floor is yours.
Greetings from New York. My name is Saikia Eapen. I'm a registered architect in New York and a chartered architect and a chartered construction professional in the UK. Currently, I'm the Director of Environmental Sustainability at the Metropolitan Transportation Authority of New York. Thank you, CVUT, for inviting me to keynote this conference, and thank you, CIOB, for supporting this important forum. As an architect and construction professional focused on salvaging our environment through sustainable urbanization with smart development and smart mobility, I've been extremely interested in how our lives, our work, and our future cities have been and will continue to be impacted by the pandemic of 2020 long after it's eradicated. In 2020, WHO made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic. I will attempt to discuss the responses to the pandemic by a city, New York City, that sat squarely in its epicenter of the Western Hemisphere, its recovery, and its future as shaped by COVID-19. As this pandemic is a people-based crisis, it threatened health, stability, and capability of the workforce in more ways than one. Health of the workforce threatened the health of the business. Companies and organizations early on in the year had to identify employees who are essential to business continuity, offer support to help mitigate stress with webinars on resilience, tutorials, mindfulness, employee assistance programs, and virtual counseling services. They also had to get into the business of encouraging healthy lifestyle habits. They started communicating with their employees much more than they were doing earlier. And they had to manage work expectation. All of these are really good practices to be continued even after the pandemic. As we open in New York, these are things that are going to be continuing. The crisis advanced digital future of work by 5 to 10 years and created the possibility for companies to accelerate their digitalization and to simplify their operating models. Companies had to accelerate smart work, train people in digital competences, and build tech support, mitigate new risks of telework, such as working alone, work-life balance, etc. To continue the business momentum, the organizations quickly implemented clear communication structure by identifying several communication channels that can reach everyone in the company. They were trying to ensure individual responsibility to prevent the spread of infection to start, manage workforce flexibility by analyzing the business impact on the workforce, and adapt to existing workforce to the current situation. Adjust and manage, of course, individual employee downtime. For New York City and many others, the bigger picture beyond a company and an organization was to enable the urban life to maintain their businesses, residences, and lives by allowing continued services and utilities essential for a city to function. These included operations and maintenance, customer service, special services for homebound and the elderly, mass transit and transportation services that continued and started new protocol of personalized service for essential workers. On top of that, there had to be new and additional services included and created to support its citizens on the pandemic, that is providing testing, providing tracing, contact tracing, etc. In maintaining critical services, cities took advantage of technology to personalize services in mass transport, field operations, and thereby adapting to a different work culture. So you see, we already moved on very, very quickly into a new work culture. With shelter at home, choice of where to live while working at the same company became a possibility. Quality of life, even through the threat of pandemic, became achievable with more me time, more family time, more how I want to spend my time with, rather than sitting in a train commuting for 2 hours. On the environmental side, looking at the air quality of our city, that was done, a study that was done in 2020, comparing the air quality of New York City in 2019 versus 2020. You could see the difference clearly between what was and what is. The numbers don't lie, and here are numbers. 48.6 NO2 in February 29 versus 33.2. I mean, that's a big, vast difference. The changes are almost 16%. Better air quality has not just been in New York, it's been everywhere during the pandemic. The cities are different, but the story's been the same one. That here is a photo you know very well. These are different cities. These are areas that in 1 year you could see stark differences. In New York, which is the lifeblood of 1.4 trillion regional economy, with 75% of the 7 million people commuting to the city, my organization, which I want to talk a little bit about, Metropolitan Transportation Authority, had a much more crucial role to play during the pandemic. Here's a glance at what MTA New York is and what it covers. With 5,000 square miles of operating territory, going out to 120 miles from its starting point, the starting dot being the city of New York. MTA is a 24/7 operation. Its motto has always been, keep employees safe, keep customers safe, keep the system moving. For the most part, the priorities did not change much from pre-COVID operations. What did change was acknowledging and dealing with complexities, because we had to, developing consistent messaging for public and the employees, because we had to. And we found that these were huge benefits. In revamping our processes, we found a better way of doing business, a new mode of doing business, and therefore that we are continuing with. In early 2020, before there was a pandemic, before there was a reported case in New York City, MTA started having daily meetings with the safety and leadership teams across the region. This is when we had heard that there was, in Wuhan, there was a pandemic rising. We facilitated getting essentials workers to their place. We started work at all hours of day and night for them, and that hence arising to our new motto, which became Heroes Moving Heroes. The disinfection and cleaning that started in early 2020 have proven so valuable in customer satisfaction that we are continuing that with in our cleaning protocol. We are back 24/7 now. But for the last 15 months, and we continue till today with disinfecting, distributing PPE, distributing advisory and regulatory information for the better health of the city. One thing we realized earlier on that we needed to be vigilantly reporting information, collect data, update customers and employees. Having done that robustly and continuously for over a year, we are able to better track our performance, our maintenance needs, and our service levels. It is said that disasters create humility. We scrambled initially, not just at the MTA, in all over New York City and all over New York region. We learned quickly, and now we are ready for the new normal. We are not done with this emergency. As we reopen and resume full service, there are new challenges, and we continue to focus on emergency management of these challenges. In areas other than transportation in New York State and New York City, a state guidance has been provided for education, for learning, about partial school attendance, about remote learning, remote teaching, training teachers, administrators in the education industry, in the education arena. Challenges of remote learnings have become evident, are being recognized, and are now being dealt with going forward. Public libraries, museums, etc., are opening up with specific protocols, which aren't going to be something that's going to go away. We have been through a lot of lessons learned in these areas to give them up at this point. On the justice side, which is courthouse, the detention areas, etc., the pandemic has highlighted what communities across the state and what advocates have said for years, and that's mass incarceration is a public health crisis. So reforms in this area are taking place very, very quickly. On the medical side, urgent care facilities, which are popping up in every other block. We always had them, but now we have more of those. These are the facilities that augment medical care, but frees up ER and hospital visits. Where and how will we live? A great question. Seems easy to answer, but generates a lot of additional questions. We all know that work will never be the same, even if we don't yet know all the ways in which it will be different. What we can say with certainty is that the sudden shift to distributed work has provided a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reimagine everything about how we do our jobs and how we run our companies. If we can move past the 9-to-5 office-centric work, there is an opportunity to retain the best parts of the office culture while freeing up ourselves from bad habits, inefficient processes, from effective meetings to unnecessary bureaucracy. Every leader believes they can do better and things can move faster. Wow, this is their chance. So we asked, what impact will a hybrid way of working have on how we communicate, connect, and create? Will work from home be the great leveler in terms of gender equality and diversity? And what will work mean if our offices are virtual and we lose those day-to-day social interactions? We examine what happens to people who can't work from home, as well as those whose jobs depend on a steady flow of traffic into urban hubs. Many of such jobs are low wage and more at risk from broad trends such as automation, and digitalization. Remote work thus risks accentuating inequities at a social level. If the future is digital, and we need to make sure swaths of the global population aren't left behind, we can learn from COVID-19 and build a better safety net for most vulnerable workers. A McKinsey study analysis of 2,000 tasks and 800 jobs in 9 countries says more than 20% of the workforce could work remotely 3 to 5 days a week as effectively as they could if working from home or from an office. If remote work took hold at that level, that would mean 3 to 4 times as many people working remotely than before the pandemic and would have a profound impact on urban economies, transportation, and consumer spending, etc. In the near future, some organizations will adopt a hybrid work model, with certain days in the office, others remote, and might align employees in office and remote schedules to create equity. Other companies will use video communication to be completely remote, but both models will enjoy increased productivity and deeper collaboration and the ability to attract a more diverse workforce. We are seeing a huge demand for remote work on our platform, one that will have a significant long-term impact on the labor market. Globally, we are seeing 4 times the number of jobs that offer remote work since March of 2020. An increased number of teleworkers is an important step towards activating the elderly and the handicapped working and raising labor productivity of the white-collar workers by letting them free from the rigid time-based management. One impediment to productivity may be connectivity. Research found that only 65% of Americans had fast enough internet service to support virtual meetings. As smart city planners and smart city developers, we know at least one thing we definitely need to do. We need to develop digital infrastructure. We need to develop a better digital infrastructure. But we also know that this will require significant public and private investment, and we will need to work towards that. And we know that we would need to work with policymakers and the industry for advancement in this area. Urbanization and urban development must be looked at from the triple bottom line sustainability, as always, profit, people, and planet, which translates to economy, social justice, and the environment. This crisis may provide a short window for our unaffordable, hyper-gentrified cities to reset and to re-energize their creative scenes. We have hope because we have Generation Z or Generation Z. They are a generation committed to environmental protection, supporting local businesses and shared assets. They are less inclined to see home ownership as a necessity and are accepting of the fact that they will have less than the generations before them. They are sophisticated, they are resilient, and they're pragmatic. They are technologically connected as it is their second nature. They are educated, and most importantly, they are futuristic. Finally, history tells us that great cities will survive the coronavirus. Cities have been the epicenters of infectious diseases since the time of Gilgamesh, and they have always bounced back, often stronger than before. The Black Death decimated cities in Europe during the Middle Ages and in Asia all the way up to the start of the 20th century. The Spanish flu in 1918 killed as many as 50 million people worldwide, And yet, New York, London, Paris all boomed in its wake. In fact, history shows that people often move to cities after pandemics because of the better job opportunities and the higher wages they were offered after the sudden drop in population. Predictions of death of cities always follow shocks like this, but urbanization has always been a greater force than infectious disease. So, with all we have learned, all we have practiced for over a year, and all we were going to keep implementing going forward, I am looking forward to a better, smarter, livable city. Thank you. And many thanks to Smart City Symposium Prague, CVUT, IEEE, and CIOB.
Hello, Porie. Welcome online in our
Hello.
conference.
Nice
It
to
is
see you.
nice to see you.
Greetings.
It's
Good
our
morning.
great pleasure to have you online, and thank you for your nice presentation. And how is the situation now in New York?
Thank you.
It's recovering. And
So,
what is
I'm
the
sorry,
current situation?
Miroslav, thank you very much. I just wanted to know if there were any questions and if there is anything that I can answer if you have anything. Otherwise, thank you for letting me be here. Thank you for airing the presentation, and thank you for your great introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a nice morning in New York, early
Thank
morning.
you. I'm,
Thank
I'm,
you.
I'm going to go out and distribute masks today.
Thank you for joining us, and looking forward for future cooperation with you.
Next time I'll be there.
Yeah, you are welcome.
Thank
Bye,
you.
bye.
Bye bye.